Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hi, and welcome to the third take on a couple takes on MS. This is Dan Digman.
And this is Dan's wife. I'm Jennifer Digman.
Hi, wife.
Hi, husband.
All right, so here's the deal. If you haven't listened to us before, basically, I have multiple sclerosis.
And so do I.
And we were married 12 years ago, and really through our conversations, we want to help empower you or make you feel like you're not alone and give you just different perspectives to think about in living with this disease.
Thus the title, A Couple Takes on MS, because we're going to show you two different perspectives of the disease. As we've talked about before, Dan's MS is relapsing remitting and mine is secondary progressive.
And so we really appreciate you joining us today and wanted to take a quick moment to thank Blue Giraffe Kid. It's actually Kieran Simmer, and he is the young man who crafted the theme music for our show, and so we wanted to thank him very much from the middle of Michigan to the middle of Indiana. Thank you, Kieran, and
thanks for that fun music to get us in the mood to talk about MS.
And today, in talking about MS, we want to talk about advocacy. Because advocacy is the one thing that we all can do and should do to empower ourselves and get our stories and perspectives out there into the minds and hands and hearts of the people who are making the decisions for us.
And it's very easy to think with MS that you don't have as much power or control as you used to have. Especially if you may remember, I'm in a wheelchair. And it's easy to just think once you no longer walk or no longer work that you don't have a powerful voice. But advocacy is a wonderful, wonderful way to express your power because the government should listen to each of its citizens, and this is advocacy really gets your voice heard.
And if you say, I don't get into politics or I don't want to talk to politicians, it's like it occurred to me as we were writing letters to our legislators. I was like, I never once thought I would want to get into political science or someday go to Washington, D.C. or down to the state capitol to talk to my legislators, but it is truly contagious and empowering once you're there and you're talking to your state representative, your congressman, your state senator. And it's just so empowering because these are the people that they want to hear your story. They want to know where you are at with, and for us, where we're at with our diseases.
And it is very powerful, and it is one of those things that if you don't know who your elected officials are, find out, because they want to hear from you, and I kid you not. But it's just that's our opportunity to use our voice. Some people with MS don't feel comfortable doing that, or they may not be able to. But whether you're speaking out loud to them or writing an email, get your voice out there. Get it to your elected officials. See, my voice is faltering a little. So sometimes that's why the internet or the computer is a really powerful way for me to get my story out there.
I think it's if the government isn't acting the way we want them to or passing laws in our favor, so to speak, we need to make our voices heard, and that's the biggest thing. Is we all need to be our own best advocates, because when you think about your situation, I mean, obviously my situation is different from Jennifer's, as is all of us, are different. Nobody knows your story better than you do, and so that's why you need to get your voice known, your voice heard, so that people understand your situation, because otherwise politicians can be passing laws without really knowing what their constituents are facing or dealing with.
And that is very important, Dan. And how did you get involved? I mean, as you talked about, you didn't think it sounded interesting, but boom, the advocacy bug bit you. And now you're always writing letters or making connections to get your opinion or your feelings heard. So how did you start?
I got started with you.
That's right.
Well, I think, really what happened was the Michigan My Choice Waiver Program. That's the program that provides the funding for Jennifer to get the caregiver, so I can continue to work every day. This way there's funds that help Jennifer to stay in her own home.
And I would be remiss if I didn't interject the word Medicaid. It's a Medicaid program that offers me hours of caregiving because I am no longer working, so that I can have someone who helps me with my activities of daily living, such as cooking lunch or brushing my teeth, using the restroom, just so I have caregivers. It's a really good program here in Michigan, and we're very fortunate to have it. And because of that, I can stay at home and live like a normal married couple with Dan, and he can continue working. But we value that program, and we know how important it is. So that's why we advocate here in Michigan, and that was the start. You're right.
Well, it's like we go down because we encourage our state senator and our state representative to continue to provide the funding for this type of program, and just spelling out that truly something like this saves the state money because Jennifer can continue to stay in her own home.
And Dan, when you said the phrase, quote unquote, I'm air quoting, that's kind of obnoxious, but it's cute when I do it. When you say I go down, where are you talking about? Where do you go?
I go down. We live about an hour north of Lansing, which is the capital of Michigan, and that's where, in you, the listener, to know who your representatives are, know where your state capital is, talk to your local MS chapters as far as like where they have state action days down there, MS action days at the Capitol. And the other thing too is then they have the public policy conference out in Washington D.C. once a year that we've participated in as well, because you were a big part of a push a couple years ago.
Yes, I was advocating for complex rehabilitative technology, and that's a big fancy word to talk about wheelchairs. A few years ago, I had a pressure sore, which was nasty and very painful, and it came from for me from sitting in a chair, my wheelchair all day. And I was fortunate that because of the sore, I was able to get it's CRT, complex rehabilitative technology. I was able to get a wheelchair that tilts in space. It helps alleviate the pressure from my sitting in a chair all day. And so that chair is very important, but it's hard to get. I mean, just honest, it's a more complex piece of equipment, certainly. So I went to Washington, D.C., and I was able to advocate for continuing to fund the ability to have a chair like this.
And I think those are the big things. Again, that's if we would not be sharing our story and the benefits and perspectives of this government funding, why would our legislators even think to pass this? And I think that's where our help and our stories, and that's where truly it is your story that makes all the difference. They understand the politics, but they want to hear and see the money in action and the people that it's benefiting.
Very abstract to say, oh, well, if you give me this very expensive piece of equipment, you will save tons of money, Mr. Government Politician or Miss Government Politician. But if I go there and I show them I had a pressure sore and I had to go to have treatment, to have that to heal several times a week, and I had to spend government money, because I am on Medicare and Medicaid, like I talked about, thank God, that I had to do all of this, and potentially the problem could arise again. But if they got me the CRT wheelchair, I would be able to alleviate pressure and possibly not get a sore again. And knock wood, I have not had a pressure sore since I have this chair, which I lovingly refer to as Gray Babe because it's a big purple power chair. So, I mean, that's very important, and Dan's right, that is very, very much our voice in action.
And that's, it's always get nervous when we first would meet with our legislators, but it's just the reality. They're working for us and they want to hear our voices. And I think when you go and always treat them respectfully, even if they don't agree with you, I think, that's just part of the nature of the political world, where we don't all have to agree, but it's ways to show why these things are important. I think that's the big deal, and I think that
I agree, and I think that's very important. But I was thinking back, Dan gave me credit for what got him involved in advocacy. But to be go back to the way beginning, Dan and I started with advocacy with the National MS Society and the action alerts. And I don't know how many of our wonderful listeners belong to the action alert mailing list, but what's an action alert?
what's nice, I think, when we're talking about politics, and you can probably be sitting there saying, well, I don't understand politics, I don't keep my finger on the pulse of the laws. Getting involved with the National MS Society's Action Alert, the incredible people in D.C. working for the government relations and public policy and everything for the National MS Society, they keep tabs on that stuff for you. And in subscribing to the Action Alert, anytime there are major issues being discussed at the political level, both nationally and at the state level, we do have action alerts for the state level as well, they're privy to all the details on that information, and they pass along really pre-written letters expressing what we need to do to approach our political leaders to send them letters. And in doing that, interjecting your own personal story with the other, I guess, the technical political language and verbiage and everything, but just to send to the letters to the politician to say, this is what's coming up, this is how we really hope you vote for this issue because blank.
And I'm not sure how many of you out there are familiar with Cliff Notes, but what the action alerts do, it's like the MS Society's version of Cliff Notes, because they send you all the best details, and they tell you where to send your story to, what points to touch on in your letter. And this is all over the internet, and it's easy once you start and you can make contact, or they will tell you what phone numbers to call. if there's a really pressing issue, to call your representative or to call your state senator. They give you the phone numbers and tell you who to call when you tell them via the internet again, tell them where you live. I think it's just a really good program, and that is how I think, Dan, that we both got started.
Well, I think, and truly, it's advocacy made easy. It makes it so simple for us because truly, they do the hard work, but then we do the work of telling our stories because obviously not everybody at the National MS Society can tell your story as well as you can. And I think that's where it was very nerve-wracking, but I think now after doing advocacy for probably 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we each have been diagnosed nearly 20 years, and we both got started pretty quickly because it is empowering and it does make you feel like you make a difference. Because there are just so many people that maybe, we're fortunate we live about an hour away from our state capital. But I know there are humongous states where it's several hours to get to the state capital and people can't make that trip down. But we are fortunate, like I said, we're about an hour away. And so we started going, and now with the help of the MS, the National MS Society, people are coming in for MS Day at the Capitol, and they bring people in who live several hours away from the Capitol. So that's why it's really important to get registered and involved with other people with the same intentions of making a difference.
And truly, there is strength in numbers, and that's why you continue to rally the troops and get more and more people involved, and that's really what we're trying to do here today. I think just the whole advocacy thing, I never, like I say, never thought that we would be in this position. I mean, we serve on the Michigan's Government Relations Committee, and we're the district activist leaders.
Yes.
And we fortunately and humbly were inducted into the National MS Society Hall of Fame for Advocacy a couple years ago, and I think that's just really such again, another empowering point.
It was a huge honor, and that was humbling, but Dan and I, you don't realize it's like a big snowball that starts as a little snowball, and with a little advocacy it rolls and it builds momentum, and the more you do it, the larger the snowball gets. And that's kind of how Dan and I were awarded that for the advocacy, and that was really, really nice, and we want to continue doing it.
And I think, we're talking here about like, oh, go to your state senator, go to the Capitol, go to Washington, D.C. Advocacy can be just the most simple thing, even just going and talking to other people about multiple sclerosis. I think one of the other first things we ever did for advocacy was a friend of ours who ran a self-help group here in Michigan. She had started to go every year to the city council to have them pass a resolution naming at that point it was like March or May as MS Awareness Month. And I think just being there to where you're putting a face on the name multiple sclerosis so that people in the community really know that this disease is impacting their neighbors. And so I think that was a real charge, because if you're vocal and you're willing to do that, just because it starts the conversations, and again puts you in control, that's getting multiple sclerosis out into the community.
And interestingly, Dan's favorite color is orange. Coincidentally, that is kind of the color associated with multiple sclerosis. And in MS Awareness Month, Dan makes it a point to take orange things to state legislators or even city officials, just to put he's taking orange bread to the president of Central Michigan University or to the mayor of the town where we live, just so that they can see the orange and get to know some of the people in their community living with MS. And a small thing like that is advocacy. Just getting the word out about multiple sclerosis. How many Americans,
I mean, it's estimated at one point was over 400,000 people in America, but I think that number is almost
Small compared to how many people once you're diagnosed with MS. I mean, think about yourself. Have you ever told someone that you have MS where they don't know someone in their family or know someone at their church? I mean, I don't want to say it's a really popular disease. That sounds silly. But it is out there. And so just continuing to inform people about it and get the word out, that's really powerful.
And so I guess then really that's the big thing, is just getting your message out there. And I think just go to the National MS Society's website, nmss.org, and look up Advocacy, because they have a wealth of resources in ways that you can truly single-handedly get involved. And once you start that network, it's so powerful that's just like, I'm really making this difference. I mean, we were there. There currently is a bill at the state level to provide tax credit for people to make their homes handicap accessible, and that it's gone through the Senate, and now it's going to go through the House.
Yes.
And I think it's just now's the time. You thank the senators, because truly, with our advocacy work, the Senate, the bill passed the Senate almost unanimously, and now it's going to the House, and then it's a matter of reaching out to our representative to try and get him to
continue the work and to thank him. And the reality is, that accessibility, that's something that affects everyone. You don't have to be in a wheelchair with MS to need curb cuts, i.e. pregnant women pushing a stroller, or mothers who aren't pregnant but pushing a stroller, they benefit from having a curb cut. Or women who have children may benefit from the larger bathroom stalls. So that is accommodations that benefit so many people. And like the legislation that Dan was talking about, to make adaptations for your house here in Michigan, there is potentially going to be a tax credit. So that's really important, because so many people are living with disabilities.
And I think that's the big thing, is like, if it weren't for people putting their voices out there to explain why this is so beneficial, potential is, though, these types of laws wouldn't get passed, because they'll say, well, there is no need for this because I haven't heard anything about it. Make them hear. I think, Jennifer, you have something that I've heard you say before about, like, you're going to speak so loud. What?
I am going to talk about accessibility and disability and multiple sclerosis. I will talk about this darn disease so much that people will cure it just to shut me up. They'll be like, you know what, Jen, we're getting a little tired of the orange bread and hearing about MS. We're going to find a cure. And I think that, with the power of all of our voices, we can make a lot of noise, especially, listening today. That's your charge. That's all of our charge, to make noise, make our government officials, make our legislators hear us and know the issues that are important to the MS community. Good heavens, I'm winded today. Do you ever have those days? MS is just like, keep it. I don't know if it's like warm and humid or something, but I'm sorry. I'll get my voice back. Edition 4.
Yeah, edition 4 will be there, but thank you here for edition 3. The third take on MS was about advocacy and just ways that you can get involved. And I think that's so powerful. And check out the National MS Society website, nmss.org. Look for ways there.
And we don't want to slight any other MS communications, or the MS foundations, or any other things like that. It's just really important to get involved with advocacy. Whatever way you find your entrance into it, it's a very important issue. And we encourage you to get involved however you can. even if it's going to a hair salon that doesn't have a ramp, for something like that where you want that to happen, that's advocacy at work, making that change. And that's what we encourage you to do.
And I think that, now more than ever, especially just if, we won't get into total politics of it, but just with the repeal of Obamacare, just everything, obviously healthcare is a huge issue at the national level.
Any way you feel about it, there is room to get your voice heard. Whether you're pro repeal of Obamacare, which I don't believe it's happened, but in 20 minutes it may. Who knows? It's that kind of the year, or that kind of time right now. So.
Well, and it's just being involved in me because there are so many issues, within the MS communities. I mean, because there's prescription drug costs. I mean, the cost of prescription drugs for MS, it's like one of the most expensive medications, and just ways that we can get involved to encourage Congress to do what it can to help lower these costs for prescriptions.
And don't forget about the National Institute of Health funding to continue researching neurological diseases like MS. That's another issue that you can get involved with if you go to the National MS website and check that out. And there is so much to continue. And don't forget that it's almost August, and that's your opportunity to meet with your local legislators. Again, we don't want to beat a dead horse, but check out that National MS Society's website and look for ways that you can get involved.
Again, thank you for tuning in another time, another take on MS with us, Dan and Jennifer Digman. And thanks again to Blue Giraffe Kid for scripting and making the music for us. And we look forward to talking to you next time. If you get a chance, go to our website, www.danandjenniferdigman.com. Send us a note either there or through Twitter, just to let us know what issues do you want to hear about, what do you want to talk about.
And what's the way to contact us through Twitter?
Our handle is DanJenDig, and that's where we're also on Facebook. Just give us a look and see if we're there. Let us know what we can do to help, and see what other issues we can give a couple takes on MS. Thank you so much, and
we look forward to talking to you next week. All the best.